want to look at the role of women in nation building, the role of women in nation building. And we have a real powerful woman here to tell us that very soon we're going to have a female president in Nigeria, and maybe we'll have a female president in South Africa, and very soon we'll have a female president in America, in the USA. I think they're very, very near that in Jesus' name, and we must make sure that happens by God's grace. Juliana is a business executive with over 20 years experience working across sectors and industries, supporting business leaders to create viable institutions and sustainable enterprise ecosystems. She currently serves as the People and Culture Director of Coca-Cola HBC. So she's asked me to announce that there's going to be free Coca-Cola for every Nigerian citizen after this edition of the Nigerian Leadership Series, as part of her efforts in Women in Nation Building. So Coca-Cola, 200 million bottles is going to go out free from Juliana. Over the course of her career, she has led several groundbreaking projects covering wide-ranging business areas and challenges within the financial services, oil and gas, telecoms, and FMCG sectors. She holds an MBA from the Lagos Business School, an MSc from Cranfield University, and a postgraduate diploma in design thinking. Design thinking, can you imagine? Systematic, inventive thinking and strategy from Ivy League institutions. So Olu, who has been disturbing me about learning how to think, I think Juliana is the person you want to teach you how to think. She can even do design thinking, thinking in design, and systemic otigaju, inventive thinking, just thinking all over the places. Okay, and so on and so forth. Juliana, don't let me read your CV too much so that I don't go on and on. And you have this happy smile, this bright smile that the sun is shining, it's going to be okay, Nigeria is going to be an excellent place, and plenty of Coca-Cola to drink. Please tell me, where in the world are you?
In Lagos.
Yeah, in Lagos. That yes. Background doesn't look like Lagos, so I must come and explain. That background looks like
technology.
The power of technology. Okay, absolutely. That background looks like the US. This one hasn't experienced sun and traffic and the wahala of Lagos. The background is too clean to look like Lagos.
Indeed.
But, so I was saying that you must either be in America or not even England. This background is too clean for England, or Singapore or somewhere like that. But honestly, thank you very, very much for obliging us. Thank you for being a woman who is into the things that great women do and who really would like to help us build our nation. Okay? Maybe we should start with some bit of international news. This lady that was running for presidency in America, maybe Marcelina will remind us her name. She was running with Donald Trump. In 1 minute, she was tearing Donald Trump apart, telling us how incompetent he is and how he cannot lead a nation, blah, blah, blah. Then the next minute, we hear that she's now saying she's going to vote for the person she tore apart. What do you think is going on, just off the cuff?
Well, I guess people have different ways of dealing with those sort of issues. I personally don't believe that you need to have a negative approach to politics. I mean, there are more constructive and creative ways to make your point. I do not believe you spend your time necessarily pulling down the other person when you could have used that same time to convince people why you are the best candidate. I think that perhaps you could have, and I know who you're talking about, she's been in politics for a while. She was one of the governors before she went on a political assignment also that was given to her by this same Donald Trump that she was trying to tear apart. So I'm not sure personally that's the best way to go. And then turning around 360 and saying I will vote for this person just personally does not send a very strong message. But just to speak to that a little bit, because we know that Hillary Clinton sort of had the same agenda. I mean, when she was going against, she wasn't going against Barack, but when she wanted to also go in for presidency, her approach was, let's do a pull down. As women who are trying to gain traction in places where we have struggled, the strategy needs to be right. As a woman, you don't need to play like a man. You need to have your own strategies. You need to understand where can you penetrate the best, right? What are those things that would resonate with people for them to believe and trust that you can do the job? I think that that's what we need to focus on. And I would like to speak to, a very strong business case why more women should be in leadership, both in the political terrain and in the business terrain. I think that we haven't spoken enough quantitatively about why that needs to happen.
Thank you very much. Before we dive into that, can you give us a little bit more about your own background? I see you've been into financial services, oil and gas, telecoms. You've gone everywhere, FMCG. And how did you end up in Coca-Cola?
Yeah, so let's just say I'm going on a journey, and there are different, parties along the journey. But let's start from the beginning. So how did I start? I have a background in chemical engineering. And one of the reasons why I chose chemical engineering was to make a point that what my older brothers and his friends could do, I probably could do it better. And I did it really well, top 5 in my class. By the time I was done, I had a choice, go into the field or be an office person. And for me, my size sort of is a disadvantage, well, not necessarily a disadvantage. I knew that I may not be able to be, offshore or be in the rig areas, and I didn't want to be in the office. So I decided to go and do something else. I decided to start a career in consulting. So I was in Big Four for a bit. And one of the reasons why I went into the part of Big Four, which was really focusing on people that I went into, was an experience I had in my 4th year when I was interning. And I felt I could make a difference to build a sort of work ecosystem where people could thrive irrespective of their skill level, irrespective of where they are coming from. I wanted to build that sort of work environment. So going into Big Four enabled me to have access and visibility on a lot of industries. So usually you work across industries, you tend to do things that are cross field and capability areas. So it was in that, during that 10 years that I spent in Big Four, that I did all the things across industry that I did. And what that meant was that I had a multi-industry view, which literally meant I could go anywhere. So whether it was financial services I wanted to go, I'd been exposed to it. If I wanted to go to FMCG, I was exposed to it. If I wanted to go to oil and gas, I was exposed to it. So that's how sort of the journey has evolved.
Okay, so you moved from Big Four to Coca-Cola. So most of these experiences
from Big Four to a conglomerate before Coca-Cola.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So most of these experiences were consulting or assurance experiences with the Big Four?
So they were consulting. I had 2 types of experience in the Big Four. It was consulting and embedded resource. So I consulted and I was also embedded in organization, which is a sort of different type of exposure. It takes away from just the telling to also being involved in the implementation. And then obviously I also replicated those experiences in the conglomerate where I was. We had at different points between 8 to 10 entities. I had various roles, including managing one of the businesses as the managing director before going on to Coca-Cola.
Okay, so how is it like in Coca-Cola and how are you guys doing? Sometimes, just for the benefit of the public, there's a difference between Nigerian Bottling Company and Coca-Cola. People tend to think that they're one and the same and so on and so forth. Maybe you can give a little bit of an insight as to what the difference is between Coca-Cola
Okay, so
and Nigerian Bottling Company, and why Coca-Cola seems to have such a strong presence in Nigeria? Or is that the style across the world?
okay, so we call ourselves system partners, right? And you're right. A lot of people, I was still telling someone about it earlier on today. A lot of people cannot tell the difference. You have the brand owners. They are the Coca-Cola Company, HQ in Atlanta. And then you have the bottlers. That's where we are, a Nigerian Bottling Company. That's a member company of Coca-Cola Hellenic. Coca-Cola Hellenic is HQ in Switzerland. We operate from 29 countries, right? But we are part of a system. So we do a lot of things together. We see ourselves as one and all that. But it's also important for people to understand sort of the distinction. So let me provide a bit more context so people understand. We bottle the wonderful Coke, Fanta, and all those other drinks that are affiliated with us that you take. We have the manufacturing assets. We ensure that the products get to our distributors and they get to our consumers. The brand owners, the Coca-Cola Company, own the formula, the concentrate, and they support us in consumer marketing, brand awareness. But in terms of, if you say like the real hard work, the real deal happens at our end.
Okay, so you are with the Nigerian Bottling Company, or what do you?
Yes.
Or is there a different name now?
So we are part of Coca-Cola Hellenic. Most people know us as Nigeria. I mean, that name has been around for 70 years, so we've sort of stuck with it.
Okay, so is it? Sorry, I'm prying. I want to learn. So is Coca-Cola an investor in Nigerian Bottling Company, or is it an associate relationship?
It's a system partnership.
System partnership.
Yes.
Okay, so you can't, for example, if you want, use your lines to bottle Limca or to bottle Pepsi or do anything you want. You have an agreement to bottle only Coca-Cola and its variants.
So Limca is part of our product, our brands under the Coca-Cola Company. So we do bottle Limca. Pepsi, on the other hand, is a completely different brand.
Okay, you bought Limca, if I remember.
Yes.
I think you bought Limca, if
Yes,
I remember the history.
Yes. So we do bottle Limca,
right.
yeah.
And Pepsi is your competitor, wanting to take your market share. So you're angry. Right. Juliana, why is there consistency or this consistent advocate for women in nation building? Why is it even an issue at all? Women, like men, are human beings. They live, they breathe, they are citizens. Why do we have this? When I was growing up, the agitation was women's liberation in the 70s. And women jumped all over the place, burned the bra, burned this, burned that, women's liberation, women's movement everywhere. That seems to have died down a little bit. Now you keep having sessions on WIMBIZ, women in business and management. You have sessions on women in leadership, women in nation building, blah, blah, blah. We don't have conversations like men in nation building, men in leadership, men in this and men in that. So in fact, the reason why we even have a men's fellowship in some churches is because you have a very strong women's fellowship. And the men say, what about us? Why is that so? What do you think is going on?
I mean, it's interesting that you brought the men fellowship, women fellowship, Mango, and it's exactly the same thing where I'm coming from. Why are we having such a conversation? For me, it's simply because we are not where we ought to be. I mean, if women were getting the right support, the right exposure, we would not be having the male-female dichotomy because things will be working exactly that the way they, should go. Statistically, we have almost the same number of men and women population-wise, right? If you look across sort of the economic platform, aside from maybe education and the informal sector, women are grossly underrepresented, right? And statistics also suggest to us that not paying attention to the value women can bring to the table constitutes both a business and economic loss. What do I mean? When you don't educate the girl child, the probability of you raising generations that have the right sort of support, have access to education, good health, it becomes slower. There is a statistic that says that when women are not educated, it costs the economy 15% of the GDP. So there's a strong business case for focusing on women. Why we don't? Again, it's because we're coming from, sort of a paternalistic culture. When we were growing up, our moms were stay-at-home mom. When my mom was a stay-at-home businesswoman, she did some, but on the average, most of the moms stayed at home. And so we had that mentality that has carried on. The woman should be in the kitchen, should be raising children, and we are not harnessing. I believe that when God created, man and woman, He didn't say that the man had more superiority mentally than the woman. He didn't do that. That's why today you have women that are breaking barriers. That in itself shows us that we're missing out as a race, missing out on the potential of women, missing out on investing in, and that's why we keep talking about this, because we're not where we ought to be as a people. And it's not just Nigeria, it's across the world.
Okay, so some women talk about discrimination, some women talk about not being properly attended to, some women talk about it's a man's world and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And you've also mentioned now that there's business and economic loss of not putting the women there. Can you expatiate a bit more about that and then dive into this issue of discrimination? Does it really exist, or is it a figment of our imagination, and so on and so forth?
Okay. So let me give a few statistics. The informal sector represents close to 60% of our GDP, right? And you have more women playing in the informal sector than men. So if you do the maths, if these women can translate into that much value in the economy, it adds up. That the more empowered they are, the more support that they get, it will have a sort of direct impact on the economy. The second, major theme is the impact of having well-empowered women on the next generation. Again, it's not rocket science, right? Because my mom, though she didn't go to university, but she went to secondary school, valued education. Herself and my dad ensured that there was no gambling with their children. There was no, we send the boys, we leave the girls. No, everybody had an equal playing ground. That is why I am where I am today. And because I have been educated, I am blessed with children who are also being educated and, being taught and brought up to value themselves and know what they can do. And it's a ripple effect. It's usually a generational impact. The more you educate and empower a woman, it doesn't stop with the woman. It impacts our immediate generation and several generations and sort of down the line. The third thing, if you look at the educational sector, and I was looking at the data, it was really profound. Where do we set the foundational values, the experiences that people have, that they remember? I remember my experience as a little 4-year-old in primary 1. And I did start school very early because, according to my mom, my trouble was too much. I needed to go and share that with the teachers. So started at 4. I remember all my primary school teachers were females. They had significant impact on me. 98% of early educators are females. 70% of primary school teachers are females. 50% of secondary school teachers are females. By the time I get into tertiary institution, it drops to 25%. The question is why? If these people have invested in the foundational years and they've groomed to the quality that they can go to university, why, for example, in universities, are we not having sort of more women? And those are some of the things that we need to sort of look at. When you come to the private sector, if you look at the way education is going now, The girls are at par, right? Best students going into fields that are previously male dominated. Recently, we heard about Professor Margaret, who became the first Black professor of cybernetics. I'm sure that was not an insight. I have an engineering background. I'm sure that was tough. There's another young Nigerian in America who had a PhD in robotics, right? So you have these people doing sort of great things and sort of showing the way for women coming behind, that there are no impossibilities for us to thrive. So the more girls that see these women thriving, the more you have little girls that have STEM foundation wanting to do sort of great things out there, right? And when you then bring it on to the corporate environment, statistics suggest that you have more female professionals. There's actually a PwC survey that dimensioned Africa, globe Africa and Nigeria, and it says that there are more qualified female professionals. But guess what? Less than 20% of these ladies, or maybe about 23%, make it to senior leadership. What happened? I mean, it's a lot. It's almost a weight along the line, and we need to ask ourselves why. Which takes me to the second question around discrimination or stuff like that. Some of them are not deliberate. Some of them come from, so I won't call them discrimination. I would say it's more of the paternalistic culture. We feel that women should not be stressed. They should only do certain things. I mean, I've been in a function where I was training people, and one of my participants said, "Oh, we don't want women in IT because you have to go under the table. We don't want them going under the table." And that felt, honestly, she went to school for 5 years to study engineering, and you're telling me she can't get under the table? Seriously? It's just a total, I don't know what the word is, but in some instances, it's the men looking out for the frail, weaker gender, but that's not who we are. In those days, work was about muscle, right? There wasn't a lot of technology. There wasn't a lot of brain factor. Now the times have changed. And I think Chimamanda said it very, very nicely. I have the brain. Pastor Itwa has the brain. Marcella has the brain. When it comes to knowledge work, brain work, we are all at par. And in some instances, the women are better. And so when we carry that same mindset, that is the weaker sex, they can't do certain things, we are losing out on value that can be fundamental to the community, the next generation, and the nation. Now, are there cases of obvious intentional discrimination? The answer is yes. I've also come across those. And but it still carries from the perspective that is a man's world, right? Women cannot do certain things. And I beg to differ. We have women going to space. I think it was Johnson Sterling, the last, one of the presidents of, was it Sierra Leone? Liberia. Is a woman. And she's still doing, my apologies, please. She's still doing great stuff, even after, going off, that role as the president. Yeah. So that would be my response, really. That would be my response. My apologies. My phone was distracting, so I need to put it off.
Okay, that's fine. So tell us, what should be a woman's role in nation building, generally and specifically in Nigeria? What should the women do to contribute to nation building? And what are we going to be expecting from the women, and how?
Okay, so this nation building thing, there's a saying that charity begins from home, right? We can't aspire to go all the way to the nation without settling some fundamental things. And this is what I mean. The home is a micro representation of the nation. When we play our roles in the homes, we are investing in the future. We are building value in the next generation, similar to what my parents did for me. One of what my mom says is, the sky cannot stop. So she made us feel like we could do anything, we could go anywhere, You could talk to anybody, you could achieve anything. And that's important. It's an important part of who we are. My dad is a very value-oriented person. So when we play our roles in the homes, we are building a crop of leaders for the future. And when we played the national anthem, and I saw those lovely boys and lovely girls, I connected immediately that, yes, this is what I'm talking about. This is the future, right? So that's number one, ensuring that we do not, under any circumstance, forget our role, that the nation starts from the home, right? Create the home ecosystem, the value system, the discipline, the inspiration, so that we have women and men who truly deserve to lead in the future. That's number one. Number two is then moving from home to community, because we also have a role to play. There's a part in the Bible that talks about the older women teaching the younger women how to love their husbands and how to raise children. And we know that there's a saying also that it takes a village to raise a child. I mean, when we were growing up, God help you, even if mommy does not see, the neighbor saw. And God help you, the neighbor will spank and mommy will add her own. So creating a community, right, where we are nurturing the right values and principles. Part of what we suffer from as a nation is our youth. Our future is being eaten up by drug, pornography, people going into quick wealth. What's the missing link? There's failure in the community. So before we say we are going to politics, can we fix the ones that are within our immediate space? So you will find that, for example, in Nigerian politics, you barely have representation. Imagine having a female local government chairperson who is driving a strong value system, inclusiveness, ensuring proper focus. We are building a strong youth community and all that. It will go a long way, right? Adding up to national impact, right? And so that's the second thing. The third thing is then around, as women, what impacts can we make in education? And education is one of the sectors where women tend to be sort of, quite well represented. So the average proprietress or school owner is a female when you look at the numbers, also in terms of the people that are in education. So how do we then use the educational system where we are well represented to continue the campaign from the home to the community to the schools, working on curriculum that are in, and building lead. And I'm happy that some of the schools we have now are intentional about building total leaders, right? We don't just look at academic or cognitive curriculum. We're teaching leadership, we're teaching vocational skills, and we're teaching essentially well-rounded people. I'm going to speak after education. I'm going to speak about economy, building it up. So we're building an educational system that would help to further improve the quality of leaders we have in the future. And then the next thing is economy. We know that most women are in the informal sector, right? And if informal sector is 6% of your GDP, that's significant. One way we can continue to impact nation building is to impact the economy. Educated females raise educated children, and with education is a potential 15% growth impact in your GDP. According to a survey by McKinsey, the more women you have in the economic sector can release up to $12 trillion into the global GDP. Now, translate that into impact in Nigeria, right? So it's nation building. It's not just about politics. It's about every aspect, that makes up our nation. And lastly, for me, is then women in politics, which we don't have. So what happens? And I see it in even micro, instances. So you have maybe affiliates or communities, and then you have mostly male. And then when you see the women, they will say she's women leader. It's really as if she can't do anything else. And in Nigeria, for example, we have less than 5% representation of women, in politics, in critical roles. And it's interesting because women make about 50% of, the citizenry or the voter population. So the fewer women going all the way also means that the ripple effects that we are carrying from the family to the community to business to economy is being truncated at policy level. And that's sad, because a lot of the things that happen in the informal sector is being defined by the politician. And so if you don't have women in that point where they're making laws, at that point where bills are coming through, at that point where certain critical decisions that will impact education, and there's been some interesting topics recently. If women are not there, then a lot of the gains that we've had from the home to the community to education to the economy would be sort of truncated. So in summary, women impact nation building across the space of interaction. Very, very important. Before we get to the point of we want to be the first female president or state governor, we need to ensure that women are enabled to play their role across all the points that I have, itemized. And then finally, to ensure proper representation such that when decisions are being made, right, it's hitting the mark. The quality of it is all-encompassing. We're avoiding groupthink. Now, let me quickly sort of take a detour and share with us another statistics on the value of diversity when it comes to decisions. I think it was McKinsey that had a survey or did a survey that said that organizations with diverse leadership, that is, you have that male, female representation at the board or senior management level, their return on investment is 35% higher than organizations that don't. So if you add it to politics, it means that the more women we have at that level, then it means that the impact would also come back to us, because we can also get better value, better impact, and better result as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. So let's talk about women in politics. Women in politics and leadership. Right now, I don't know what the statistics are, but I know that in Nigeria, there's no female governor, as far as I know.
Yeah.
There's a smattering of female deputy governors. I'm not sure they're up to 5. And as far as the presidency is concerned, president or vice, and so on and so forth. Why is this? And what should we as a society also do?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I think for me, the first thing is the perception and the mindset of the role that women can play in politics needs to change. Prior to now, the idea is women should manage women. We can do a lot more than that. We are much more than Minister of Women Affairs and Youth Development. We are much more than Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, and which is where you typically find women, the female portfolios, right? However, politics in Nigeria is very peculiar. And it takes a type of woman to be able to thrive in the Nigerian political scenario. In the first place, it is heavily male-dominated. And one way I feel that we can break that barrier is that perhaps maybe there needs to be a legislation or something that would enable, like CBN has done with FSI, the bank board, there needs to be a law that sort of forces it, right? And I'm not saying that when the law enforces it, we should just put anybody there. We should only put women that are capable, but having a law would help us to get there. Now, if you look at Lagos State, I'm not sure about other states. Lagos State has been one state that had sort of broken the barrier by having female deputy governors, right? And I mean, you can decide how you want to view how that ended. But the fact is that they made an attempt. They made an attempt. What they need to do is to continue to build on that attempt. And having, teams or societies or networks like ALG helping women to acquire the right sort of capability to operate in a political scenario. What you need in the private sector when it comes to business is different from how you play politics, right? Literally, women need to understand how to play Nigerian politics, and there's that support in infrastructure. I think WIMBIZ has some stuff that they do with women in politics. So we need a bit more of that is intentional in helping women to understand what it means to be in politics, right? I think the other thing is also we need to ensure that we're able to walk before we run. And there's something about building up our capability. So if you look at a number of professional associations, I know that at some point ICANN, president was a woman. I'm not sure I've heard of a female head of MBA or president of MBA or whatever, but you could start from those professional networks, right? To begin to build your political ambition. You start from somewhere, you build on it as a woman, make sure that you're getting the right sort of mentorship, you are connecting with the right people, you are being exposed. And sometimes, honestly, if nobody is giving you that opportunity, you force it. If you are not invited, invite yourself, go there. If you have that desire to make a difference, and some of it could even be special assistant to somebody, but you're learning, you're going through some sort of apprenticeship. Long and short of it is, without legislation, nobody is going to make life easy for us. So we need a bit of intentionality as women, and perhaps men like Pastor Itwa, who is passionate about women, can also create opportunities and support women to, get to where they have the potential to get to.
You've got it. I'm ready to support women because I grew up with a very strong woman, and she made me know that what a man can do, a woman can do much, much better. So that's the background that I have, and that's how I grew up with a very, very strong woman indeed. In fact, she behaved and moved like a great man. So I'm ready to support you. I hope you can all hear me. My picture looks frozen, but as long as you can hear my voice, I think the women are winning. Okay. So, yeah, I think I agree with you. Women have to be intentional. Women have to be deliberate. Women have to stop limiting themselves. I think sometimes it's unfortunate that it's even the women that limit themselves. After a while, they say, but I'm a woman. I mean, that kind of statement only means that you're inviting some kind of preferential treatment or some kind of discrimination. And then, of course, women have to also be ready to do things that are strange and difficult. Politics, sometimes men play it at night, 12 midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. So no woman should come and tell me that I'm a woman. No, I can't play politics at night. Wear your trousers, tie your belt, and be there with them, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, nobody's going to give you preferential treatment or give you a 20-yard gap for a 100-meter race, So I think women need to talk to them. It's not going to be easy. You would always try to use your advantage. So I don't know what women need to do. Do you need to set up a stronger fora? Do you need to talk to yourselves a bit more? Do you need to educate yourselves? They say your population is higher than ours in Nigeria. It means that if you all agree that this is the woman that you want, naturally you'll be able to get the votes if you all register. So already God has given you population advantage and so on and so forth. So what strategically do you think women are going to do, or what strategically would you be your advice, especially in the politics that we have in Nigeria today?
Okay. So I think for me, the first thing is to move away from the mindset that we cannot do it, right? Because it all starts with the mind. I've been, reading some book about the power of visualization, of seeing your dream before it comes to life. Because the more you're able to paint that picture of the future, the more you are driven and passionate about, achieving it. Many women have gone to space. And I dare say going to space is probably a bit more life-threatening than going into politics, because you never know if you are going to come back. I mean, it takes a lot of guts. There have been women who have stayed in the International Space Station with men for months, and I mean, they've done it. So why is going into politics scarier than going to space? That's number one. Number two is there are certain tricks and tips around mobilization. Men are men's best advocates. Honestly, men look out for themselves. They have each other's back. As women, we need to do the same. We need to be our own advocates. We need to speak for ourselves. We need to collaborate. We need to support. And we need to understand that, look, there is a Marcella that is a candidate for maybe a private sector defining role. That is who she is. We'll support her to deliver that. There is a Jane that is a state governor material. She has all that she has. We support her, right? And there's another Fumi who is maybe, I mean, for God's sake, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, she's GG of WTO. I mean, she's a woman. And literally when that election was going on, we were those that didn't have any direct impact. We were mentally, emotionally, and spiritually rooting for her. There were people who were looking forward to, and she competed against men. And so if you have a Nigerian woman that can operate at that global height, why can we not get into politics in Nigeria? We just need to support ourselves. Who are those women that have the pedigree? I'm sure most of us don't know them. They need to be a lot more visible. Let us know them. And they can get all the support to rally all the female professionals, around, like Pastor said, we have numbers on our side. If we put our mind to something, we can get it done. There's also the role of advocacy, which we have been doing. But honestly, maybe we've been talking about this. So I'll give a very light example because it's very common. You hear the man say, how many times are you people celebrating Women's Day? March 8th, you celebrated International Women's Day. Sometime in March, you celebrated Mother's Day. Sometimes in May. So you see that even that simple celebration, the men are getting worried. Do you understand? Because they talk about it every day. So imagine when we are intentional about finding these women, supporting ourselves, and banding behind ourselves wholeheartedly to make it happen. We will get it done. So it's really in our hands. And Pastor, you said something around being ready to pay some of the price. Not all, because some of the prices that are paid, they are not things that will take you to heaven. And some of the prices that you need to pay is you learn who are the movers and shakers, right? The king makers, the people who can be your voice and your advocates. You find them, go and tell them to be your champion or your sponsor, or your mentor. You need to be tactical and intentional. You need to be strategic. They don't even know what your end point is, but you leverage that support system and you get what you want to get at the end of the day. We also need to stop feeling like somebody needs to make a way for you. No, your brain should make a way for you. Honestly, yes, I know that businesses and there are regulations, and I said that would help. But honestly, we should not create an opportunity or a thing where the men will say it was because we allowed them. Come on, go get it. If you're good enough, go for it. Go after it. Go and compete with a man. And unfortunately, you need to do maybe like 5% more to get it, but it's okay. At the end of the day, the man will know that you deserve it better than him. But that they should lower the barrier so that you can enter. It does not help our narrative. And we need to run away from that. And in conclusion, for us to be where we ought to be and to be seen to have ended, we need to do the work. We need to be ready to do the work. We need to be ready to make the sacrifices, and we need to be intentional about it.
Yeah, do you think in any soon time frame we will have a female president in Nigeria, or a female governor on her own steam, not because she was deputy and then the governor was kicked out and she became governor. Do you think that is possible? India has done it. We had Indira Gandhi.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, even Pakistan had Mrs. Bhutto.
Bangladesh,
even
I
Israel
think, have had female leaders.
Sorry?
Bangladesh has had female leaders as well.
Bangladesh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, who had a lot of shoes? Is she the one who had a lot of shoes?
No. It was not that.
That's the Philippines.
So to your question, Pastor.
And then Israel had Golda Meir in Israel. So are we going to see one soon? And what are the steps that person is going to have to take? And is there anything you like the men to do to make this happen?
Okay. So I would say that the chances of having a female governor, probability is higher than having a female president anytime soon, right? Like I said, let's take it one step at a time. Aside from the interesting nature of politics in Nigeria, what is it that people buy into? People buy into a solid pedigree and credibility. They have seen you deliver and operate at a particular level, and they can say, yes, right? She can do the work. So even some of the assignments that we are getting as females, whether you're a commissioner or a minister or you have whatever, those are fantastic platforms for you to begin to build credibility. And like I said, even if they don't invite you, invite yourself intentionally. Be part of nation transformation. Be part of nation building. It could be maybe the president is looking for someone to help to drive agenda on youth empowerment and stuff like that. Be the person to help to solve that. And that gives you visibility in a low risk way. And as you build on that, people will say, oh, she was the one that worked on this. Yeah, so fantastic, she did it. When you put your hand up for governor, chances of them voting for you is high. So again, it goes back to do the work. Be out there, be visible, be intentional. You cannot stay in the backyard and say because you're a woman, they should vote for you. We don't know you. We need to know you. We need to know what you can do, what you have done. And again, what is your plan for the people? Unfortunately, in Nigeria, people don't vote they don't vote based on understanding of manifesto. But as a woman, if you have an antecedent and you come and tell that, look, I've done this, this is what I'm bringing to the table. Usually the elites and the people who understand these things will be, I'm sure you even get some of the support that you require from them. Yeah. So female president, hopefully in our lifetime, female governor, very doable.
Okay, let me ask you a personal question. And I'm going to be inviting people to raise up their hands electronically and see if they have any questions or comments and so on and so forth. And then I don't know if Minister Sonny is there, and I'm sure Jumoke is, so that they can conduct the Q&A session. A very, very personal question. Are you going to run for political office?
Am I going to run for? No. Should I?
Why not?
Because I know my calling, and my calling is not politics.
What's your calling?
Can I do it? Yes. Will I do it? No, because I'm a very purpose-driven person. So I know my reason for being, and my reason for being is to impact at a different level, right? Somebody can say, maybe you want to take it. So my reason for being is really around building generational leaders. So consider me as somebody that is invested in building, impacting next generation governors, ministers. That's my calling, and that's what I'm focusing on. Not all of us will be at the seat, but some of us are doing valuable work to prepare people who are going to be sitting in those roles. And that's where I fall. I fall in the category of those that are impacting next generation and building them.
Okay. I'll let you and provided you raise me 10 governors of your ilk, but even you could raise 1 or 2 male governors, I have no problem. But I'm going to take you up on building next generation. Okay. Let me see if there are any questions. I don't know if anybody has any questions or any comments. And also, Pastor Sonny, do you have any comments and questions? And then Jumoke, you can please conduct the Q&A. Sonny, are you there? Well, the woman has chased him off the screen. Pastor Sonny has a very tough wife. She's my special daughter. So she's got him to go to the kitchen and please take the Q&A.
Pastor Sonny is here. I've asked him to unmute. He's here.
He's crawling from under the bed.
He's a co-host. He can unmute by himself.
He's crawling from under the bed where IB put him.
No way. Very passionate conversation.
It's someone. You
yes,
won't agree.
Pastor.
You know, go. It's someone.
Thank you very much for your very passionate presentation about women lib, and I have always believed, like Pastor said, that generally on a balanced scale, women tend to do better, like you said, in management role. And most of my working career, and this is me personally, about 80% of my bosses were women. 8 out of 10 bosses that I had were women, and I saw the diligence, the process, and the way they worked and the way we worked. And I also worked with a lot of ladies. Again, another 8 out of my own reports, direct reports, were also women. So I can make maybe some fair assessment, that women are good. Women, when you leave an assignment with them, they tend to try to follow it till the very end. However, in politics, it has not been the case, whether in Nigeria or in Africa, because in Africa, up till now, the president of Tanzania is a woman. And I speak to a few Tanzanians, and when Magosela was killed, or when he died during COVID, let me not say he was killed, the vice president took over. Salim in Liberia was a woman. Sadly, I don't know whether they brought that mark we saw them exhibit in management to the political space. And we have had a few women. Nigeria, one woman that stands out in recent time is the late Dora Akunyili. We saw the passion with which she ran, whether it was when she was DG of NAFDAC or when she was a minister. There was a lot of passion. But again, when you compare her to all the other gamut of women that we have had, including those that have put their hands in the till, then in politics, we tend to think that there's something about politics that women are not very, very different from men. So maybe it's the system, I don't know, but I'm afraid. So my question really is, in politics, women have not shown enough dexterity in terms of performance when you compare them to their male counterparts. So how then can we argue for more female in governance, that they will bring what they have done in management into the political space?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you've said is that females have not shown as much dexterity in the political scene compared to how they've done in business. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I guess there are a few women that sort of negate that conclusion. And Dora will be one of them. And then Okonjo-Iweala is one of them, right?
Okonjo-Iweala.
So they sort of balance their performance on both sides, right?
Yes.
One thing that we need to not miss out is going to politics, number one is we've spoken about intentionality, pedigree, what are you coming with? Is also let's ensure we put the right individuals. People should have portfolios where they can best fit. And unfortunately in Nigeria, just give people whatever comes without necessarily, both for male and female, without necessarily ensuring proper fit. But let's even assume proper fit is not there. There are smart women who know that even where they may have some technical gaps, you surround yourself with people that can help you to shine. And that's one of the things that the men probably do very well that women need to learn from. Don't try to go it by yourself. There's a reason why you are a leader. Leadership is about direction and energy. As long as you know where you need to go to, right? Surround yourself with the people who will help you to get there. And you just be that cheerleader who is making things happen. So there are a lot of things that we need to learn to do differently. We shouldn't try to do everything by ourselves. We need to be systematic so that the value that we can bring to the table is then more intentional. Thank you.
Can we
Thank you
please
very
run
much.
the
Okay.
question?
Pastor Sonia, are you done? Okay. Thank you
Yes,
very
it's done.
much. Okay, thank you very much, Julia. I think you spoke my heart. And you said something that we should all understand our calling and stick with it and pursue it passionately. And I also want to just lend my voice to yours for us women to show up unapologetically. We don't need permission to do what we do, and also to build resilience, because you're going to get people that will call you names because you project strength. But I think we should be authentically who we are and build that resilience and focus on what it is that we're doing. And I also, you mentioned something, there's a role that men do in supporting women at Africa Leadership Group. The management team, there are 6 of us on the management team, and it's half women. Oh, no, there are four women and 3 men on the management team. I am second vice president, and I'm also chief operating officer of the organization. And I get the support from the president and the rest of the team to do what I do, what I'm passionate about. And also not to, we would have resistance from community. There's microaggression. We have to know how to deal with microaggression. And it's part of cultural and emotional intelligence, right? Because you will be called names to keep you silent. But if you have a calling and if you know what your calling and your passion is, then noise is distraction. You stay focused and you continue to do what you're doing and you build your tribe, right? I will build a tribe with you because we speak the same language, right? Yeah, you're a kingmaker. You don't need to do politics. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to raise your hand to say I'm a woman. Your work speaks for you and your spirit projects who you are. So thank you. You've just found a new mentee. I would be calling upon you for more of this. And we have women. We're mentoring women also at Africa Leadership Group. We have people like Professor Grange and Tifumi. So we have all these women that have proven themselves to be ethical, responsible, and accountable leaders as female of authority in position. And those are the ones that we look up to, that they are the shoulders that we lean on, that we continue to lean on to get our strength. So thank you for this. I could talk about women in leadership forever, but we're going to open it up for questions. Thank you so much. We'll definitely be reaching out to you to share a lot of what we are doing, because there's a role that you can play, especially with our up-and-coming women leaders. So I'm going to start taking questions. We have quite a lot of hands up. So please, I'm going to ask you to keep it very brief, succinct, so that our guest can answer your questions. We usually take 3 questions at a time. You group them so that your response to those questions, if you want, I can help you jot down those questions as well, and then take them in groups of 3. So we'll go ahead and get started with Blessing. Blessing, please go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, all. Mine is actually a comment. The present president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers is a female, Engineer Margaret Oguntala. She's the first female president of the NSE in 65 years. At her investiture, she made a comment. She said, while the other ladies who competed with her were busy looking for the votes of other women, she, knowing that we had more men in engineering than women, decided to stick to the male folk. And eventually she got the votes. And when you listen to her speech, I would actually encourage people to go to YouTube and check it out, the 34th president of the NSA. You will see a woman with passion who knows what she wants and has gone out of her way to get it. And such a woman needs every encouragement. For me, when she's done with NSC, she should either go for Ondo State governorship or we push her to national level for such a woman. So I just want to say that we have women who actually know what they're doing and they're ready to do it. And they get the support of the men when they know how to get it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Can I have Eyitemi? Please go ahead with your question.
Hello, good evening. No, mine is a comment, actually, not a question, because listening to what everybody has said, I think at this point in history, for me, obviously, patriarchy still exists, but there's really nothing physically that's stopping us as women from achieving at higher levels. What I think that the issue really is an issue of the mind. And it's an issue of the mind in the minds of women themselves, ourselves, you know. Just from my experience and observation, I think that women, we've constituted ourselves into our own worst enemies. We've internalized patriarchy and turned ourselves into, you know, away from the home, we've turned ourselves into these kind of like sidekicks of men. And if I just want to speak to the point somebody made about politics, where women are not really showing up as positively in politics. And at the risk of sounding controversial, I think it is because men have constituted themselves into gatekeepers in politics, and the majority, dare I say, very, very controversially, but I think it's true, that the majority of women who get into politics tend to go in as the sexual sidekicks of male politicians. And so that's why I think that we're not showing up very positively in that space. Another point that I would like to make is that I think also as women, well, my perspective is that we tend to ghettoize ourselves. I even think that when we're talking about women empowerment, we tend to do it in women-only groups, which I always find a bit strange, because if we're talking about empowering ourselves in the wider world, surely the conversation should be in that wider world, talking to both men and women about empowerment. Another point. Then another point I'd like to make,
if I could have you round up, please, because we have like 6 hands up.
Sure,
and we'll
I'll just make this last point.
Okay.
That I tend to, you know, classify women just mentally in my mind. I see women as women who can and women who can't, i.e., a lot of women, the majority of women in Nigeria, dare I say, seem to have constituted themselves into this grouping who really believe that they can't. And the funny thing is that the women who can't, in my experience, are often just as competent as those who can. But they tend to be using their capabilities more towards trying to attract the attention of men rather than just go out there and get things done. So
thank you.
I do think that's where the conversation needs to be. It's got to be about the mind and how do we change the minds of women ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. So may I have Pastor Funke Awolowo, please?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I like the point she made concerning pedigree. And I think I'm an example of that. Many years ago, I think I was at the Braithwaites, that's my mother's side. And I was just plunged into politics by somebody I met there. And we got talking about Nigeria, and he said, no, you've got to be in politics. And that's how it started. And overnight, there's a lot of plotting that goes into politics. I just saw myself stepping down as the presidential candidate of a party for the next person in line, and he became the presidential candidate. In short, when the people were interviewing me, the question they kept on asking, with your name, with your pedigree, how come you are stepping down? And I really did not have any answer. And that's kind of the limitation women put on themselves, and all that. I would go on then to go for interviews and all that. And my family, they were quite surprised and they felt I was being used. I just came back. I shouldn't be in this position. And I was fought, even on, people in government that were in the family. They said, you can't speak for this party and all that. And till today, women are being told what they can do and what they can't do, and it's an ongoing fight. First, going back, my grandmother too was plunged into politics. That's the late H.I.D. Awolowo, because she had to, when Papa was then put in prison, she had to go out there and campaign. I heard that at some point they were asking her, if that position was really open, would you step in? Of course, she was not ready. And, now that we've heard from you that your role is actually to empower such women, I would like to engage you all the more. What do we need, especially when most of the time it's not because we have the vision, we are plunged into it, and we know we can do it. What other things can we do to make ourselves relevant and to make it possible in Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that was one question. That was question one. The others were comments. Do you want to take two other questions with this one? Ms. Julia? Okay.
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. Auntie Yemisi, please go ahead. Good evening, ma.
Good evening. Lovely to see you, and having another powerful speaker. Julia, you ticked all the boxes for professionalism, qualification, etc., etc. My question, I have two questions. In my experience, have found that a lot of women and men are governed by their cultural, traditional, religious beliefs. And in Africa in particular, the main religious beliefs, whether it's Muslim or Christian, says the man is the head. And this is such a powerful element in nobody wants to offend God, can offend each other, but going against God's laws, that's another, realm altogether. How do we, using people like Pastor Itoa, who's obviously a new man and somebody who has evolved in his thinking and his spirituality, how do we get people like him and you to liaise with the other leaders across the board in the religious realm, in the traditional realm, for them to begin to preach the equity that male and female are equal? And how do we get the women themselves? Because very many women who are very, very qualified. I remember the NAFDAC lady, I forget her name now, who has died now, who was saying in a very public forum that she kneels down for her husband. Her husband is the head of, her realm. Now, so how do you deal with that very, very powerful psychological message? That's number one. Number two, one of the greatest barriers to women's involvement in politics is funding. The men still beg and borrow the money to run the elections. And many women are not ready to involve themselves in practices that they find, objectionable. But you need a whole bunch of money. That's why most women who win are backed by powerful men. So can you answer those two questions, the psychological bit and the resource bit? Thank you once again. You are obviously one of the future, you're already a leader, but don't give up on this presidential bid. We're watching you. Thank you, Julia.
And I volunteer to be your campaign manager.
Yes.
So we'll go ahead and take those. You have 3 questions. One from Pastor Funke Awolowo. Do you want me to read those 3 questions out to you?
Yeah, I think I have them covered. So
Okay.
I will take an attempt. And thank you, Pastor Awolowo. I can see Professor Grange here. Wow. And a lot of other people that I know and those that I've heard of. So really great to be doing this with you. So Pastor Awolowo, your sort of experience is perhaps common to most women who have gone through this. And as I reflected on the question, which was, what can we do to make ourselves relevant? As in, you went for it. I guess you wanted it. But somehow you were coerced or convinced that the man should get it. And the question I've asked you is, did you want it enough to stand your ground? Did you believe enough in yourself that you were probably better than the man? In which case, I would expect that you stick with it. And if for any reason that party did not believe in you, I would move to a completely different party if I believe strongly in my capability to be the right person. And so in reflecting on how can we make ourselves relevant, how do we stick with this dream? The first thing is to want it enough, right? Want it with everything inside of you. So you yourself need to be convinced about your capacity and capability, meaning whoever comes and tries to dissuade you, you already done that internal conviction and the work is less easy for them. Then do the work. Walk the carpet, get the people, get the support, speak at the right people. So you do the work and you go for it, right? And then you take charge, because at the end of the day, if you're putting yourself forward for a sometimes thankless, very difficult role because you think you can make an impact, it's you putting your life at stake because you believe that is worth it. So you need to take charge. At that point, you are an individual who, if you have a spouse and you prayed about it and you are both convinced, and honestly, if God has said it's okay, no, that person matters. That would be my response to you, man. So the second question was around how do we influence conversation on equality in the church and really dealing with social norms. So my humble opinion is that there is no way, if I am so inclined that I want to go for a political position and I won't get the backing of my spouse, honestly, because it's a recipe for disaster to try and do this and not get that. So that's the most important person is after checking in with God and he says, okay, is the man or woman you are married to. Once you have their support, end of story. Now, are we all in the same sort of league or understanding on the fact that there was a Deborah in the Bible? She was a judge. Not only was she a judge, she was mother in Israel and she went to war. Do you understand? As in, she did the 360 as a woman. It's documented. There was an Esther that though she was a queen, but was instrumental in the hands of God to save the Jews. So we have precedents in the Bible. I'm sure when we look at the other faiths, they probably have. We have Queen Amina of Zaria, somebody will teach our children about in social studies, who was also there. She reigned, she went to war. So there are examples. But you see, we have our work cut out. It's not going to be a one-day conversation. It's a continuous conversation. My own personal approach is that when I'm dealing with stuff where I need a mindset shift, and I feel like maybe the people that are there now, I know that their time is is for a while, right? They are getting all the baby boomers and they will soon step aside for the younger people. I focus my energy on the younger people. I focus my energy on doing the rewiring and the mindset shift because they are still malleable compared to the people that are fixed. So if the people that are here don't get it, let's pay attention to the people that are coming up and the people that are there now, and I'm sure we'll be able to do something. Now, you also spoke about men having powerful backers. I mean, you didn't say that those men also have backers in their wives, right? They have, and some of them will depend on the network of their wives. So that's what we need to learn as women. Have your network. One of the other speakers, spoke about, how you leverage rather than focusing on just the women population. You need both men and women. So you can also do that. I also reflected on what's her name now, the female vice president of America, right? She went into politics. She didn't get it, but yeah, she's the first female vice president. She broke the jinx. Did she get funding? Yes. So there are ways that we can get funding. We also just need to be tactical and intentional and very deliberate about it. I have addressed the questions.
Yeah, I think, yes, I think you have funding and then the culture, you addressed all three. So we have about 4 more hands up, and we'll take those hands, and then we have a few announcements. May I ask Mr. Charles Obin to please go ahead and unmute, and then we'll have Dave Momodu and then Professor Grange.
Well, thank you very much. I'll just make a quick comment because I want to leave space for the great women whose hands I see up here to ask their questions. I just want to congratulate you, Julia, for your passion and for the courage to speak boldly about one of the key issues of our time. I think that beyond allowing women to be women, we need to see them as human beings who can do exactly what Pastor Itwa was saying. They can do what a man can do. The reality is we live in a society where it's almost like you have to be seen and not to be heard. But again, I congratulate you. I mean, if we look at our history, we see people like Mrs. Rasam Kuti, who was a fierce advocate for women freedom and for freedom in general. We have had the likes of the Queen Amina and those other fighters of past generations. So to see people like you here, we call her Queen Jumoke, and again, all these wonderful women here who are flag bearers for women freedom. I think Nigeria has a good future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Can I have Mr. Dave Momodu?
Yeah, my beautiful sister Jumoke. This is your brother Dove, not Dave, Dove Momodu. Miss Julia, let me join other people before me to say that you have admirably represented yourself, your family, and of course, women as a whole in your presentation. And I say a big thank you. Please permit me to speak to your insight on the representation of women in the teaching profession, which in my opinion highlights a global trend. Indeed, there are more women than men in this field today. In addition to the academic curriculum, the value of role modeling for both boys and girls in the educational environment is significant. You might agree or disagree, but the approaches to role modeling can differ between men and women. My question, therefore, is, what is your perspective on the gender disparity in the teaching profession? And how do you believe this disparity affects the outcomes in the quality of graduates, their performance in both personal and professional spheres, and their contribution to society today and in the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much, my brother. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you Dove. I don't know where Dave came from, so apologies.
No worries.
Professor Grange, please go ahead, ma.
Oh, right. I've got the muting problem. Jumoke, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to ask the question. Not just a question, but to say a little bit about what I experienced as a female leader. Julia, it's wonderful that you have shown us that the struggle that previous generations of women went through, including myself, have not been in vain, because here you are now advocating vigorously for women's education and leadership positions. Let me just say that all things being equal, women will do very well in any position, including politics. However, in politics, it is not just that women need to have the personal attributes and values, etc., to do well. It is also that they need to know how not to be compromised, because most times those who are already in politics, they've developed a culture of compromise. And if you come, join them as somebody who does not want to be compromised, you are going to have a very big problem. Well, it's possible to overcome it if the person who has appointed you or those who have elected you really do appreciate your value, and they do want a change, they want a transformation. But most times, they do want transformation, but they don't know what it means, what the result of this transformation will mean that they themselves will become more realistic in their expectations. So that is one problem that we are, coming up against in the modern politics with women going into politics. Secondly, you find that where even the leader who has a lot of confidence in the person that he has appointed, he's surrounded by a lot of men who do not think that this leader really has chosen right, simply because their motive in having a woman there is quite different from the motive of the leader. I'm happy you are shaking your head, because this is very, very important. Is that if you get into that kind of environment, you really have a problem. I had a problem because I had Minister of State who was actually planted there to checkmate me, So we want to think about things like that. And I got some support from other women in the ministry, but those women, in fact, when we all also became, they became targets, and they were punished, when they felt that we had not behaved the way that they wanted us to behave. Having said that, I want to agree with those who said that the role of men in changing the mindset, their own mindset, is very, very important. Let me ask you, what was your father's intention in sending you to school? Is it not for you to become anything that you would become? Right. So, but you moving from there to other settings, you find men who will not want you to become anything, you know. So we've got that contradictions among men. Again, you look at your siblings, perhaps you have brothers, that the only way that your brothers will accept that you should go ahead, forge ahead, is if they themselves were being properly looked after. All right? So you need a balance in the home. You need a balance in the home to be able to come up and perform admirably and use your talent in the public space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. Yes.
Sorry, just one more last thing. So we must move on to training boys. The training of boys is very, very important. And to get them to feel secure, even when women are doing very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. So, Pastor Tayo, I saw your hand up earlier on. Do you want to ask your question? Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Julia. I just wanted to draw our attention to this, the importance and role of men. I think we need men who are courageous, confident, and competent to uplift women. I want to read a quote to us, extracted from Michelle Bachelet, who was former president of Chile from 2006 to 2010, and from 2014 to 2018. She was also the first and only woman to be elected first head of UN Women 2010 to 2013. And she said this, I quote, "I think we must recognize that there are many men who need to be helped. They do not know how to help us women. So we should never lump men together in one group of anti-women people that do not want us to get to the highest. We need men who are courageous, confident, competent in themselves to allow women to be who God have made them." I think that says it all. We have more men in. I'm a champion of women. My mother is a great teacher. I have sisters and also daughters who I believe so strongly in. We need men who are confident in themselves to allow women to be who they are in terms of their destiny and purpose. And we don't have that, not just in Nigeria, but all over the world. We have these lacking. So we need to start empowering women. And thank you, Mommy, Professor Grange, about talking about training boys to ensure that they help and assist their sisters to become who God has called them to be. And so thank you very much. That's just my comment.
Thank you very much. So they were mostly comments that you've had so far. So we'll take the last two questions and then I'll add mine. If I can have, I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman, Bolade Thomas, so permit me for not using Miss or Mr. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Jumoke. This is Bolade Thomas, actually Bola Thomas. People know me as Bola Thomas, but my full name is Bolade Thomas. So I'm a female. Thank you very much, Julia. This is really wonderful. And it's an interesting subject to me because I'm a stout believer of female being whatever they want to be at any level. Women can achieve whatever they want to achieve. And I'll use myself as an example. I was elected as the first female president of Association of Advertising Agency in Nigeria, AAAN, for those who know about it. I happened to be the first female president. And that was after like about 40 years of practice in Nigeria. And initially, the men were not too comfortable electing me as their president because I had to play with them, you know, and I later on got their support. They fully supported me for my 2-year tenure. It wasn't even 1 year. They voted me back after. So I served my 2 years, you know, out of confidence. So actually, I believe that we can break the gender barrier in presidency in Nigeria. Only if we have some few courageous women, we can do it. But then there are so many things also that we need to consider. First of all, we have to look at our cultural perception, which says women should actually be in charge of home and not work. But some of us, executive management, who are in management position, you will know what I'm talking about. So you have to continue to fight the culture. And of course, the home front also, where you probably will have husband that think that you must, put food on the table, even in your coat and whatever, So we need, how do you manage that? That's what I would like you to maybe, share your experience or whatever with us. Well, we have the home front to deal with. We have also the spiritual barrier, with all apologies to my brother Itwa, when they keep on preaching that women should be there for the husband at any point in time, I didn't hear them say that men should support women in whatever role. Somebody said something about Harris in America. The husband actually follow her all over the place, and to come to uplift their women into the position we're talking about. Then again, please, political environment in Nigeria is, how do women fit into that? Into that violence thing, and then again, having your meetings in the middle of the. Why should that be? Shouldn't we start reconsidering all this political scenario to accommodate other genders into it? I'm not saying they should give special preference to women. Women can actually achieve whatever they want to achieve. Look at it all over the world. They are there. We just need somebody to help us, move us into that scenario and achieve whatever we want to achieve. I believe we can do it. And may God help us women to achieve that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your questions. I think her question, you had already answered it, so maybe you can add to it, part of it. And then, Auntie Funsho, please go ahead, ma. Go ahead and unmute and ask your question. And then we'll take the very last one, which is Electoral College for the evening.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be on this call, and I thank the speaker. I wanted to align myself. A lot of the things I wanted to say, Professor Grange has actually said it. I think we need a critical mass of good men and women in politics. If all of us sat down today, who are the people, have we got our best 11 in politics today, whether men or women? I believe that God is doing a new thing. I'm a child of a politician. My father was governor. My father was killed. I work in the educational sector. I see these days the boys are not even striving at all. The girls are doing so well, and they're going to get married to these boys who lack self-esteem. And that's how they become violent later. So let us be very, I see, for example, I stayed off politics until Aswerime Igodalo got in. And when Aswe got in, I'm campaigning for Aswe more than I campaigned for my own father. When we have the right people in government, the people will rejoice. When Chief Awolowo was there, people rejoiced. When Mrs. Fumilayo Ransom Kuti was there, people rejoiced. It is about getting good human beings. Right now, we don't have good human beings, are not in the majority in our political space. Once we get a few good men and women, it will have a trickle effect. People will begin to have reference points. The Lagos State Judiciary is the best judiciary in Nigeria because it has 90% of female judges. check with any other states. The states that is the least corrupt judiciary is Lagos State government. I'm a lawyer myself, so I'm speaking with facts and figures. So unless we begin to get competent people, look at the governor of your state. Which organizations did they run before? Were they the president of any association? We have women here, president of Association of Advertisers. We have female architects. In Nigerian, my brother's an architect, Nigerian Institute of Architects. The president is my childhood friend, Bolaji Adeniyi. So women will thrive anywhere. We don't need, but until we have the idiots in power out of government and we have good people with sense, then we will have women with sense. And then all of us, we are not good. People are not voting for Asue because he's Asue or because he's a man, because they have seen his pedigree, they have seen what he has done. And pedigree is not about just being somebody's child. It's about your values, your character. We need men like that. I am excited that somebody like Asue is coming up at a time like this. And I believe that God is doing a new thing. And we're going to have more and more women and men who are good people, because they are good people in Nigeria. They are just not in the political space. And the bad people in the political space are the ones that say politics is dirty. They create that scenario. We must change the narrative. And I'm so happy that Professor Grange shared her experience. And while we are empowering the women, let us remember we are leaving the boys behind. I am a school owner. I can testify to it. The boys are slacking big time. The first, second, third positions in my school are usually girls. And the boys, they say, let them get it. We're still going to get married to them. And look at the ratio of partner violence in the United States. Nigerian men who sponsor their wives to go and study nursing. And then when the dynamics change, the woman now starts earning good money. They kill her, kill the children, and kill themselves. The men kill themselves. So please we have to be intentional about raising good children, both boys and girls. Thank you very much. I'm happy that I was here.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you. So, Electoral College, your hand is down. Did you have a question? If not, then this is the end. Okay.
Good day. My comment is here. So it's more of a comment. And thank you very much, ALD. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Kunle Lawal. I'd like to introduce myself as a Nigerian that loves Nigeria. Also a politician, let's say a retired one at a young age. So I'd like to start with the issues which Nigeria has. First and foremost, Nigerian women were always part of the political system. Sometime in 1923, after the Aba women's riots and after Funmilayo Kuti's issues in Ibadan, I think between 1930 and 1935, the Macpherson Constitution was constituted by the then British colonials, which restricted voting and participation in elections till you had a particular amount of money. And that began the downturn in women participating in governance in Africa. So first and foremost, I presented why we are where we are. Secondly, I would like to say something. I've heard a lot of conversations on this call, and I'll say good governance has no gender. It also has no tribe. No gender can claim it's better at governance than the other. I think that's a common misconception. Thirdly, I'd like to state that you cannot want power and not be at the dining table. If I took a rational census of the women in political parties on this call, I don't think I'll get 8. You can't want to be part of dinner if you're not sitting at the dinner table. You must be participatory in of course, and people must give events. I've had this conversation. I hear most people say these things. When you're in a political party, they meet at 2:00. I was national publicity secretary of the political party, I think, at age 34, and I was that for about 4 years. I never met anybody at 2:00. I ran for Senate in Abuja, in the FCT in 2019. I didn't have any meeting at 29. These are fictions. I don't know who created them, and they've seemed to sell very well. I don't understand. And right now, with the work I do with the Electoral College, I'm privy to party meetings and etc. So I think we should actually get into these things and understand how they really work, instead of, these fables that are fiction, which we throw around, which are not the reality of what exactly occurs. So I think if we want women to actually participate in politics, a lot of us support that. A lot of us are behind that. I will be honest, my first time in politics, I was behind Professor Remi Shonaya. I was director of strategy of Kowa Party at the time. And it was a good run, to have the first woman be a presidential candidate on the ballot. I wish women would do more. Men like me are here to support. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much. And those are the last questions. But I want to ask a question, and you can add that in your closing remark. Do women really need permission to show up and be who they are? Because I hear a lot of, well, the men should allow them, the society should allow them. Who really is giving women, who should be giving women permission to fulfill their calling and their purpose? I think that's one area that I would like you to include in your closing remark. And also for us to also understand microaggression and how to deal with it. Because it's very prevalent, but maybe if we don't identify it, we won't be able to address those issues. And then my third question, and people have said it, we talk about women in the home and these boys. Who is raising all these men that are not bold and courageous and insecure? Who is raising them? So can you that's my question, and include that in your closing remark if you don't mind. And please, we ask you to stick around because this may be the launch of ALG Women in Action. So thank you so very much for taking the time to meet with us and to speak with us. You spoke my heart, and you are my tribe, and women like you are definitely those that really should come together to begin to build ourselves and then the next generation of women leaders in the country. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Lots of questions, very interesting and thought-provoking. I'll do my best to address the questions and the comments. I think I'd like to start with a quote that I found. I hope I can find it now. Yeah, very quickly. It says that women of the thinking society are the builders of nations, right? Women of the thinking society are the builders of nations. So I'm going to start from Jumoke, your question around, do women need permission to show up? I certainly don't take permission from anyone. I just show up. If I want something hard enough, of course I engage, because marriage is about partnership. As much as I don't expect my husband to go into stuff without us aligning, I also will not, do stuff, but we share the vision, we share the dream. I get a lot of energy from him. He gives me energy. Once we have that alignment, I move. If I want something and I'm not getting it, I push for it. So there's a bit of knowing what you want and wanting it powerfully enough to push through in spite of the challenges. And there will be challenges. Professor Grange shared that experience. It's the story of most women in corporate world. There are men there who don't feel that we can do it. And there are men who are cheerleaders, right? If you don't have the right mentality and believe in yourself, you would struggle. So you need to believe in yourself. You need to want this well enough and strong enough to weather whatever storms come, because storms will come. And that's the reality. Who is raising the men? Another very valid point, right? And recall on what I said is, sometimes I pick my battles, which is, can we influence this generation and the next generation to get it right? Because the generation ahead, they are sort of already formed. There's very little. You can't teach an old masquerade a new dance. So we don't want to waste time trying to teach them new dance. Let's influence those that are coming up. And if you recall, when I was talking about the role of women in nation building, I started from the home. Because we must not go on this journey and forget that for us as women, our impact is multi-generational. So it's not just going out there to be politics, but and then we're not, doing the bit we need to do at home. So we must be intentional about raising men with the right value system, women who respect men, women who believe, men who respect women, men who believe that a girl child is as important as a male child, and is not compromising one person's future for the other. Professor Great asked me a question: if my father sent me to school because he had dreams for me. Yes, and one of what my parents told me is, I didn't send you to school for a man to put you in the kitchen. You are going to school so that you can do stuff. So the more we are imputing those sort of values in our male and our female children, then we will not have a gender-based conversation. And the last gentleman that spoke, but I will take it from another dimension. We're speaking gender because a lot is broken. If we fix what is broken, fix the next generation, we would not have to be talking about giving females a space, men, because you are raising men who understand the value of men and women. Yeah? Micro aggression, how do we identify it? So sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's not. And Professor Grange had, sorry, ma'am, using your sort of example because you gave us something powerful to work with, is they knew she had the brain power. She had the experience, she had the technicality, right? What she probably didn't have was a bit of the, how do I navigate the political scenario? And so somebody should have helped her there. And there were people who probably needed somebody else. Now they went and brought these very competent women, who probably didn't allow them to do what they wanted to do. And it starts from creating a toxic environment, very difficult workplace, coming against whatever plans. But that's the reality, because even some men go through that. I've heard stories of men who have to go through really, really challenging times. For me, it goes back to believing in yourself. And we must never be naive, honestly, because there's always someone around the corner who is waiting for you to make mistakes. And so as somebody who is putting herself or himself out there, you need to do the homework. You need to understand what you have gotten yourself into. And then please surround yourself, like she tried to do, with people who can surround you left, right, and center, have mentors, have close friends who you can go and cry to, you can go and tell, and they can advise you objectively. Now, there was a question on, so Bolade Thomas spoke about managing home front and spiritual aspects. I am a child of God. I will not just call myself a Christian. I believe in the word of God. I believe everything he has said about me, right? First of all, I'm a woman, number one. Secondly, I am married to someone. And my scale of preference in terms of what is important is God first, my husband second, my children, career. So anything around politics comes after these people. And so you need to decide what is important for you. Because after politics, you are going to go back to the man or to the woman. So if we don't respect one another and understand the importance of our spiritual relationship with God, who gives us good health and the sound mind and the wisdom to achieve what we need to achieve. And if you don't remember that at the end of the political assignment, your family is waiting. At the end of things, it's the ball is in our court in terms of the choices that we make, but that is the way that I see it personally. Then Mr. Momodu spoke about perspective on gender disparity in the educational sector and impact on quality of graduates and contribution to society. So, like I said, I don't know why by the time we're getting to university education, we have a significant drop. But I do believe that if you check with any person, along the way, people that have taught them, people that have been part of their growth, part of their education, have two types of influences of them. Either very solid influence. My maths teacher of blessed memory, I talk about him all the time. As an engineering graduate, I didn't have the opportunity of doing further maths, right? And I'm doing engineering maths. The man took O-level maths to a next level, Mr. Ichendu. So, and he was a man. He impacted me, maths, physics. In secondary school, I was taking A-level physics and solving it because somebody believed and invested in me and made me and my classmates feel, even those that were scared of math, nobody had F9. That was a man, right? So it's an individual experience. For me, yes, we have said that the women, make impact. But you see, at the end of the day, there are some men that are actually more intentional than women, and that is the truth. There are men who have all daughters and they will go out of the way to make sure that their daughters get to the height. And this, my maths teacher, believed enough in us in an all-girls school that we're as good as the boys, or even better than the boys, and he invested the time. So it's relative. Impact is a function of how much primary school, in secondary school, or in university. In closing, governance is genderless. I agree. However, I hope I'm still being audible because it's saying my internet is unstable.
We can hear you.
Governance is genderless to the extent that we fix the things that are broken. And what is broken a lot of the times is our mindset. And one of the commentators mentioned it. As a woman, if you don't believe enough in yourself, somebody will sway you from what you want to do or what you want to do. So you need to have that self-belief. You need to believe you can climb Everest. You need to believe you can go to the moon. Once you have that conviction and you do the work, I'm telling you, there is no political party or political juggernauts or funny thing that can stop you. None. And so at the end of the day, it starts and ends with us believing in us. Secondly, for our wonderful male colleagues, our supporters, you need to remember that you have daughters and you have sisters. And so you need to project onto most women that have these aspirations that what do I want for my child? Are we having female children so that they can be less than who God has created them to be? Is that what we're doing? If that's not what we want, then we need to be all out there and giving the support to women who have what it takes to make a difference in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those powerful closing remarks and for the entire session. It's been very insightful. And as you can see, we still have like 130 something people on the platform. So thank you for taking the time. Before we bring up Mr. President for his closing remarks, this is just a call out. You've spoken very well, and it's a call to action. Everything you've said is about us really taking action and moving forward, whether it's in the political space, in the society, economy, whatever your calling is. And I think that's one of my key takeaways is to follow that calling passionately and also to be focused on it. We have a link in the chat room. Please click on that if you would like to engage with ALG. We have a mentorship program going on, and I see some of the young female leaders here that are in that mentorship program. And it's because women, older women are pouring into them, and I've seen their transformation from being silent to actually showing up and speaking up in this short time that they've been in this mentorship program. So we ask you to please be involved. It's not a journey we can do by ourselves. It's something that we have to do as a community and build our own tribe, build our tribe of women that are passionate, committed to being leaders, again, whether it's in politics, whether it's even in the civil society space, whichever space that your calling is, build your tribe. And we'll be here to support you as you build that tribe. So please fill the form. We would like to engage you and get more information from you. And lastly, we have an announcement. Again, this is a good day to bring up this announcement because it's a program that is targeted at women between ages 18 to 35. I'm going to go ahead and project the flyer. This is women in, I don't want to miss Yappy. It's youth in post-production and animation. We are going to be working with the Del York Group, and we'll send out this information on how you can register to participate in this program. There's a link for you to register. youth in animation and post-production initiative, youth animation production and post-production initiative. So I'll put the link in the chat room. Share that. It's a 9-month program, and it's free. It's free, and the training and then also the placement. It's a great initiative, and we're privileged at TriAfrica to be supporting this initiative for young women. Thank you very much. I'll bring up Mr. President now for the closing remark. I don't know, Pastor Lu, Pastor Sonia, are there additional announcements before Mr. President comes up for closing?
No, nothing from my end.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And a big thank you to all of you for participating on Tuesday's program, where the youth arm of ALG launched out. They are called the Real Advocates. We had about 74 people participate in that inaugural program, and they would be having their monthly sessions. We'll keep you posted on that. A big shout out to our youths and our program manager for the phenomenal work that they did. Thank you all so much for joining that session. We appreciate you, and we hope to engage you as we continue to empower, support, and encourage them to take their rightful place as real advocates. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you all very much. It's been a very great evening. It's been very phenomenal. Thank you, Juliana, for your speech and for your presentation and everything. Whether you like it or not, I will vote for you to be governor and then president. You hear me? And all will be well. So women, let me declare and declare that we're waiting for you, and we really want you to take part. Like Sonny said, his bosses were women. His present chairman is a woman called IB, dealing with him very well. And somebody said that 90% of his leaders were women. And the judiciary in Lagos State, that's what my sister said. I'm very excited about that the judiciary in Lagos State is the best judiciary in the world. So I would tell my friend Jide Sanwo-Olu, and I think it was Osinbajo that really drove that revolution to some extent. And I'm happy that the women are really in charge. Mrs. Adegbola, thank you so much. God will bless all of you. Have a really great time. All the contributions, Prof. Anthony Kegrange, always my sister, the head of the Ransome Kuti family. God bless you also. So have a wonderful rest of the evening and have a wonderful weekend ahead. And hopefully same time next week, we will be here again. Thank you very much, Sonny, and thank you, Pastor Tayo. Thank you very much, Olu Victor. Thank you very much, Faye. And thank you very much, Jumoke, the great woman. Somebody called you queen or princess. Otigajo, my princess. Queen, my queen. Otumba Queen, her excellency.
You like that name.
Yes, as well. You look like a queen, true. Okay. All right. God bless you all. Thank you.
Have a good evening. God bless you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
God bless everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
you, everybody, for the
wonderful
visionary
leadership.
Julia,
Creating
our
ALG.
next president, female president.
Thank you, Queen Jumoke. To let people know,
thank you.
I've not seen Pambo in a while.
Thank
you. Good
My
night.
last name is Edo, so just remember, I don't know, may not the carry last. Thank you all.
Good to see you, Jumoke. Keep up the good work. Well done.
Thank you, Auntie. Thank you. Thank you for inspiring us to come up. Thank you so much. Uncle Afolabi, is this your face? Uncle Afolabi, is this your face? Good to see you.
It's good to
Mommy,
see you
come
as well.
back. We are missing you.
I'm back.
Pastor